It's 10 p.m. in Banjul, and from our studios on MDI Road, this is the news. First, the headlines. Scores of people descend on Kanilai to mark the day, set aside to highlight the significance and efficiency of traditional medicines in the treatment of a range of ailments. The Ministry of Higher Education validates the National Qualification Framework meant to harmonize its programs and institutions with international standards. Tehran calls new U.S. sanctions on Iranian individuals and entities for the recent ballistic missile test propaganda. And missing Hong Kong bookseller and strong critic of Beijing, Grameen Hai, appears on Chinese state TV weeks after he disappeared into thin air. Well, viewers, those are your headlines. With me, WINIFRED NICOL. Thanks for joining us once again. Herbalists and specialists in traditional medicine over the weekend converged on the President's hometown of Kanilai to commemorate National Traditional Medicine Day. The day was specially designated by President Jammeh Babili Mansa last year to celebrate the important role of traditional African medicine and promote its revival as an alternative complement to conventional medicine in the treatment of various diseases. As we hear in this report by Mamadou Jallo, this year's commemoration was carefully chosen to coincide with the 9th anniversary of the popular and highly successful President's Alternative Treatment Program, which has seen over 9,000 patients suffering from diseases such as HIV and AIDS, asthma, infertility, among others, receive free treatment.
Specialists and practitioners of traditional medicine converge on the President's hometown of Kanilai to commemorate the 2nd anniversary of the historic pronouncement when government designated January 17th every year as Traditional Medicine Day. The event was also graced by senior government officials, National Assembly members, local government authorities, members of the diplomatic corps, and advocates of traditional medicine. The theme for this year's commemoration is going back to the roots for a long and healthier life. This year's event assumed added importance as it coincided with the 9th anniversary of the President's Alternative Treatment Program. For organizers and practitioners, the day brings back the spotlight on a practice that is as old as time itself, but has recently been overshadowed by conventional medicine. However, the pioneering role of the President, His Excellency Sir Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya Jammeh Babili Mansa, has been crucial in the revival of traditional medicine as an alternative to conventional treatment of numerous diseases. Various speakers recognized the important role traditional medicine plays in our daily lives and called for concerted efforts to not only promote but equally integrate it into our health system.
The degree of organization and integration of traditional medicine into mainstream health system in the African region reflects important differences between the countries. It has been known that while some countries have no structures in place, others have achieved considerable organization and integration. Happily, in the Gambia, the chief or most renowned practitioner in traditional medicine is our own dear head of state.
We, the traditional healers, the Gambia Trahas, are very proud of our father, our leader, and president for his visionary knowledge to guide us in promoting traditional medicine where it is today. We thank him for pronouncing the annual celebration that we are celebrating today, National Traditional Medicine Day.
The start of the President's Treatment Program way back in 1997 was a groundbreaking event, as it for the first time broke the myths associated with the treatment of certain diseases, most notably HIV/AIDS. 9 years on, over 9,100 patients have been treated, an unprecedented achievement that Dr. Tamsir Mbo, the Director General of the President's Alternative Treatment Program, believes speaks volumes about the potency of natural medicine.
Our dear leader, the President, has given priority to the well-being of individuals as a necessity, a right and not a privilege. For this, he has worked tirelessly and endlessly. With the aid of the Almighty Allah, he continues to treat other diseases such as hypertension, infertility, diabetics, asthma, and other diseases.
The Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Omar Sy, also harped on the critical role of traditional medicine in the global fight against chronic diseases. He asserted that the government, through his ministry, will continue to work closely with practitioners in order to integrate traditional medicine into the mainstream.
The Ministry of Health and Social Welfare of the Gambia took a lead in collaborating with the West Africa Health Organization to establish a sub-regional association of traditional practitioners, develop guidelines and registration modalities, as well as encourage the conservation and local production of medicinal plants.
For the President, the day should be one of thanksgiving and sober reflection. The President therefore urged Africans to go back to our roots, which have proven to be highly dependable and effective in the treatment of diseases.
If those days, when roads were bad, there were no hospitals, not even to think of doctors. When people depended entirely on the roots, herbs, and leaves that we are seeing in front of you, they lived longer and healthier. Then today, when we depend entirely on Western medicine and we are dying, let's go back to our roots.
The President recalled the calculated efforts employed by the colonialists to discredit and stigmatize traditional medicine and its practitioners, something that led Africans to look down on them. Centuries later, he added, they used the same tactics to demonize him when he announced that he has found a cure for the deadly HIV/AIDS disease. Until now, Western countries had made the world believe that the disease that had claimed millions of mostly African lives was incurable.
They used to tell Africans that it will take 25 years before they can get any treatment for AIDS. They could not deny my treatment. I found the medication for it. They cannot challenge it because at every stage of the treatment, we use their laboratories to test. What they were saying that it will be 25 years, and everybody was expecting that it can only come from the Americans. The Chinese declared after me that they have treatment for HIV and AIDS. But they made the same pronouncement I made, which is a fact. If you are treating AIDS, you get rid of the virus. That's the only way you treat AIDS. You remove the virus from the body of the human being.
The hostile reaction of the West, according to Professor Jame, was driven by economic considerations because the overly rich and powerful Western pharmaceutical companies wanted to maintain their monopoly on the lucrative drug market. His tenacity and belief in the power of African traditional medicine kept him going, resulting in remarkable success stories, especially in the treatment of several other diseases such as asthma, infertility, and sickle cell. The President therefore called on his fellow practitioners to remain true to their God-given knowledge by upholding the ethics of putting human life above materialism. By working together, the President concluded they could achieve even greater milestones in the coming years by taking on deadlier diseases such as cancer. The President later took time to visit the makeshift stalls, accompanied by the Vice President and other cabinet ministers. The conducted tour accorded him the opportunity to see firsthand the various medicines on display and engage the herbalists and practitioners. Earlier, President Jammeh presented a cash amount of $400,000 to the Traditional Healers Association to strengthen and enhance their activities. This would undoubtedly boost their morale by reassuring them of the President's continued support. A President they know fully well is a distinguished African traditional medicine practitioner. Mamadou Diallo, Grts News.
Banjulians are gearing up for the bicentenary celebrations of the capital city, slated for April this year. The committee in charge of organizing the grand celebrations was today given the all-clear at a ceremony presided over by the Minister of Lands and Regional Government, Momodu Akibayo. Aissatou Keita has the details in this report.
Committee for the Banjul Bicentenary celebration, a committee set up to be in charge of celebrations marking 2 centuries since the city was founded, then Banjulu and later renamed Batos and now Banjul.
As the capital city of the Gambia, the event has a national significance. Therefore, it is with great satisfaction and joy that His Excellency, Chief Professor Alhaji Dr. Yaya A.J. Jammeh Babil Mansab, President of the Republic of the Gambia, has fully endorsed the observance of this great event. The approval by our head of state underscores the pivotal role Banjul has always played in the socio-economic development not only of this city, but of the entire Gambian nation.
I take this earlier opportunity to thank the President, His Excellency, Chief Professor Alhaji Dr. Yaya A.J. Jammeh Babli Mansa, for his full endorsement and support of this bicentenary initiative of our municipality. It is timely. Expression of support has been very encouraging. We are grateful to His Excellency, the President.
The launching is a step towards the organizing of activities for the forthcoming anniversary celebration in April, something that will help provide the opportunity to draw programs and bring forward ideas in order to make the event a success. And Alhaji Ibu Momar Tal is the chairman of the committee.
We constituted ourselves into an ad hoc planning committee and discussed the following points. One, that we should draw up a program of events for an optimum period of about a week to mark the bicentenary of Banjul. But we need a finance committee, subcommittee, to mobilize funds and sponsorship. Then we need to set up a cultural and social affairs subcommittee. Then we need to have a communications, media and publicity committee, subcommittee. Then we need an education committee, which could be merged with culture and social affairs. We need a development and environment subcommittee.
The celebration, which will be held in 2 months' time, will be a day to mark the existence of the city, 200 years since its founding, providing Banjulians the opportunity to take stock of the past, the present, thus chart a way forward for the betterment of the island city. Reporting for Grts News, I am Aissatou Keita.
Higher education experts and partners from other tertiary institutions gathered recently to validate the National Qualification Framework, aimed at harmonizing programs by setting standards in line with that of other institutions in the sub-region and beyond at a 5-day sectoral retreat. Buba SMCC tells us more.
Was participatory as participants actively involved in group works to make necessary adjustments in the National Qualifications Framework document vis-a-vis the issue of quality education and transfer of credits, among others. The Regional Education Director for Region 5, Mr. Usman Ba, is the host of this important convergence.
We are privileged and we are happy that we have chosen to come here. And I hope we'll always come here to do this type of jobs here, because the environment is so conducive and welcoming.
This retreat focuses on new education sector-wide policy that captures every Gambian to achieve quality and relevant education through formal and non-formal routes. It seeks to harmonize programs and synergize efforts to be at par with other institutions in the sub-region and beyond.
Within the Gambia, what will the framework do for us? It is going to promote lifelong learning, access, mobility, and progression into and between education and training sectors. This will be achieved by integrating existing vocational education and training, general education and higher education into a national framework with levels accommodating all learners from various educational backgrounds.
The Permanent Secretary at MOHAS, Dr. Chorno Umar Bari, highlighted achievements registered by his ministry, while emphasizing the significance attached to this retreat. P.S. Barry stressed the need for harmonization of programs.
What we should do now is to reflect seriously on how we can ensure that every student that leaves grade 12 gets an opportunity to study beyond grade 12. It is our mandate. It's not only the ministry's mandate, but even your institution's mandate. University education is not completely dissociated from the other forms of education, from skills development, from tertiary education. It means our first task is to harmonize our programs. And this is why the National Qualification Framework would be relevant today.
The governor of Central River Region, Omar Khan, expressed gratitude to MOHAS for considering the decentralization of tertiary and higher education institutions across the country.
My office is very much appreciative of the participatory approach that involves local government authorities, women and youths at the grassroots in the development of your STI and city and higher education policies. One of the policy pronouncements
in the treaty and higher education 2014 to 2023 is the proposed establishment of one major skills training center in each of the administrative regions in the country. This policy pronouncement is highly welcomed by all the regions, particularly my region, the CRR.
Shortly after presiding over the validation of the National Qualifications Framework document, the Honorable Minister of Mohast, Dr. Abubakar Senghor, addressed the participants, commending them for their inputs. He described the National Qualifications Framework as a very important document needed for formulation of a sector-specific strategy plan and review of other plans and activities.
This sector retreat is unique in the sense that it is the first time the sector has converged to discuss and validate the much-needed National Qualification Framework, governs the entire spectrum of the higher education system, and also for the formulation of a sector-specific strategic plan and review of other sectoral activities, sectoral plans and activities. Its uniqueness also stems from the fact that within the spirit of gradual decentralization of our activities in the sector, we have decided to move this activity from the urban setting of KMC to the rural areas. It is important to note that the credit transfer system in the NQF seeks to promote access to learning and also procedures on progression without compromising quality, because it is very important that whatever happens at all levels we ensure quality so that we can maintain the positive image of our country.
This retreat has brought together expert participants and representatives of the tertiary and higher education institutions, as well as subsectors that validated program areas of Mohast, stipulated in the new education sector-wide policy 2014 to 2023, which seeks to promote harmonization of programs by setting standards for students to have smooth transition with their credits from one institution to another within the sub-region and beyond. Buba SMCC, GRTS.
Scores of volunteers recently descended on President Jammeh's groundnut farm in Jalokoto to help in harvesting of the vast farm. The voluntary exercise, spearheaded by the Managing Director of Gambia Ports Authority, was meant to complement the Gambian leaders' Vision 2016 Food Self-Sufficiency Drive, as Sujata reports.
Gambia, a food self-sufficient nation.
This farm was initiated by the families, members of Sanyankunda, in collaboration with the President call for people to go back to the land, and in line with his vision of 2016. The volunteers are family members of the Sanyankunda family. And if you look around, it's a cross-section of all villages. So with Ndemba and Bita in particular. And then you have Kanjabina, you have Janag, and all the way to Jakoy. So it is a very, very important thing to have this farm here. Because a lot of people have come together. They were saturated in the previous years due to one reason or the other. With the invention of this farm, everybody comes together and eat in one bowl. So that's one achievement that we have to say thank you to God and thank you to President Jammeh.
Mahmoud El Sanyang, the Managing Director of Gambia Ports Authority, is the man behind this gigantic strive aimed at supporting President Jammeh's Eat What We Grow and Grow What We Eat initiative.
The use of this country, particularly the use of Fonyi and Fonyi Berefet and Bita in general. I have been on the forefront of youth development. So when I initiated this, so they don't want to be left behind. So you can see a cross-section of all the family members all the way. Women, young. You can see all these people. They are very, very young and they are school-going kids. So it's a testimony of that they like the president. It is our intention to make sure that it continues. So we want the president to be aware that this intervention that we want to continue, to bring people together and to continue to dedicate a farm on his behalf.
Aramata Jiba, a volunteer, said they will never be left behind when the call is made for Gambians to till land.
13.6 hectares is the size of this farm. The dimension of this heap of groundnut you are seeing is 20 by 20. It's 20 by 20 is the dimension of this heap you are just seeing. We are on the threshing time of the groundnut. We are threshing the groundnut now, hoping to winnow this groundnut at least by next week, because we want to make it work to finish today. We want to get rid of everything. We want to level everything to zero. We have already harvested the early varieties. We got some few bags, I think around 11 bags, and this is the late groundnut. So this is the one we are hoping to finish up with the work. We are expecting to extend twice the size of this for this year. Because of lack of machines, that's why we are not able to at least expand it. We just have this level of size.
The Alcalo of Bicha said they will continue to work hard to ensure food security. His counterpart, Alcalo Tombon Sanyang, calls for more farming implements to enable the volunteers to till more land. Mamadou Sanyang is the Public Relations Officer, Gambia Ports Authority. He described the move by the MD as a step in the right direction, adding that staff of GPA are on the ground to complement the efforts of the Managing Director. He also called on the youths of the country to be behind the President in his Back to the Land call.
The youths should try to emulate the statements of the President, in complementing the Vision 2016. And today you can see to read that the Managing Director of the Gambia Ports Authority did not relent his efforts in trying to complement the Vision 2016 statement of the President. You realize that all the youths gathered here today are trying to support the move taken by the Managing Director in trying to create a special farmland that will be named after his President. You realize that the President is, anytime he made a statement, he is trying to do it for the best interest of the Gambia.
Other speakers included youth leader of GPA, Dembo Seidi, who spoke of their readiness to partake in the future endeavors. Malamen Fafandinka Sama, Manager Electrical Electronics, GPA Ferry Services, commended volunteers from the neighboring villages who have been rendering help during the course of the farming season. Aisa Tujata, GRTS.
Well, that report by Aisa Tujata takes us to a forced break, but we will be back with news from outside the Gambia. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani has described the lifting of international sanctions against his country as a glorious victory. Some sanctions have been removed after the UN nuclear watchdog confirmed that Tehran has complied with last year's nuclear code. Other differences remain. However, on Sunday, the U.S. imposed new sanctions on 11 Iranian companies and individuals over a recent missile test. More in this DWTV report.
And the start of a new era and the end of crippling economic sanctions. But in the US, President Obama was stressing the nuclear deal does not mean all issues with Iran have been resolved.
We still have sanctions on Iran for its violations of human rights, for its support of terrorism, and for its ballistic missile program, and we will continue to enforce these sanctions vigorously.
And following Iran's recent test of ballistic missiles, the type designed to deliver nuclear weapons, the US has imposed new sanctions. These stop a small number of individuals and companies from using the US banking system. Iran, too, has said the deal does not mean it automatically trusts the US. The Foreign Ministry in Tehran lashed out at Washington over the new sanctions. The Islamic Republic of Iran will respond to such acts of propaganda and harassment by following its legitimate missile program more seriously and boosting its defensive and national security capabilities. We will continue to closely monitor America's fulfillment of its commitments as the deal sets out. While many have welcomed the nuclear deal, some remain critical. Israel says lifting sanctions will only serve to destabilize the region. It is clear that from now on, Iran will have more means which it can divert to terror actions, and Israel is prepared to deal with any threat. In Iran, the deal is being greeted as a breakthrough. There are hopes it will usher in a new era of openness between Iran and the rest of the world.
A missing Hong Kong bookseller has suddenly re-emerged on Chinese state TV with a confession. Gramin Hai, who holds a Swedish passport, says he was guilty in a fatal hit-and-run incident that happened back in 2003. Although the state news agency reports that the 51-year-old was convicted of drunk driving in 2004 and has allegedly been on the run from Chinese police ever since. Mr. Hai claimed on state TV that he had returned to China voluntarily to see his mother and said he turned himself to the police. Other booksellers who still works at are critical of China have gone missing in recent days, and their disappearance has triggered international street protests. Many supporters suspect the bookseller were abducted by Chinese agents, and this is strengthening fear. CNN's Will Ripley has more.
Gui Minhai really shocked a lot of people when he appeared on CCTV, the major state-run channel here in China, and he said that he chose to travel from his apartment in Thailand, where he has a second home. He also lives and works in Hong Kong. He chose to travel from Thailand to mainland China and admitted to committing more than a decade ago. It was a deadly hit-and-run accident where a young college student died. And, of course, his family and friends and supporters, and as well as many people in the cyber community in China, are really doubting that this actually occurred, because his apartment was left pretty much untouched, his bed unmade, his medication and groceries sitting out in the open, and he simply just vanished one day. So there's a lot of suspicion that Chinese agents, in fact, abducted him. There was a huge international firestorm after he and 4 others disappeared, all of them associated with Causeway Books, which is the publishing company in Hong Kong that Gui Minhai owns. And this company specializes in publishing salacious books about China's political elite. In fact, apparently, he was working on a book about China's President Xi Jinping's alleged love affairs that was due to go to the printing press fairly soon, and that's when he vanished in October and hasn't been heard from until appearing this confession on CCTV. And another interesting thing, Christy, he's a Swedish national. He holds a Swedish passport, but on CCTV he said he didn't want the Swedish government to intervene on his behalf. He simply wanted to handle this on his own. And I need to show you too, Christy, a live picture, because this topic is so sensitive here in China. You can see the television screen that is now currently blacked out. That is CNN's signal here in China. They have censored us. They have blacked out our signal. They do not want this story to be reported in mainland China. So right now, anybody watching CNN is seeing that black screen there, Christy.
We take our second break now. Sports is next. Welcome back. Victoria Keflavik have retained their title after beating Medina United 2-1 in the Mandinari Youth and Sports Association organized Nawetan tournament. Ababkar Senghor reports on the final, named after Mamoudou Max Diallo.
Defending champions Victoria Keflavik celebrated back-to-back titles in the Mandinari Nawetan after a hard-fought 2-1 defeat of Medina United in the Village League final on Friday. The final, named after the late Mamoudou Max Diallo, was played amid colorful atmosphere graced by football spectators within the settlement under the stewardship of Mandinari Youth and Sports Association. It was a well-contested game, with either side limiting the other to few chances. But the game burst into life when Adama Kamara opened the scoring for Keflavik. When he benefited from a deflected header in the 22nd minute. Medina United responded to that setback with a flurry of their own attacks, but were denied a leveler. And to make matters worse for Medina, Victoria scored through Ensabaji to extend their lead to 2-0. In a frantic end to the game, Babukar Diouf netted in the latter stages of the game, but Victoria held on to their precious lead to win their second consecutive title.
I feel very happy for attending this program. I'm thanking the Mandinarian committee for always remembering my dad. I'm saying a big thanks to them. We are very happy. You can pay them.
Progress has been made in the drive to promote football in the community, according to MICE chairman, who expressed delight at the successful conclusion of the tournament. The 10-team tournament, which successfully concluded with the finals, has been hailed for the organizational successes and an improvement on previous tournaments. For Grts Sport, this is Baukar Senghor.
And before we take leave of you, a recap of the day's main stories. Scores of people have descended on Kanilai to mark the day, set aside to highlight the significance and efficiency of traditional medicines in the treatment of a range of ailments. The Ministry of Higher Education has validated the National Qualification Framework meant to harmonize its programs and institutions with international standards. Tehran is calling new U.S. sanctions on Iranian individuals and entities for the recent ballistic missile test propaganda. And missing Hong Kong bookseller and strong critic of Beijing, Grameen Hai, has appeared on Chinese state TV weeks after he disappeared into thin air. Well, viewers, that was all in this edition of the News at 10. From me, WINIFRED, NICOL, and the entire news team, thanks for the pleasure of your company. Do stay with us and enjoy the rest of our programs.